Hi everybody, happy spring. I hope that it's getting nice everywhere like it is here. We're going to talk today about our medication taper program. And before I go into all the details of that, I'm going to talk a little bit about a few announcements that I have. First of all, our links below for the website are followyourblissfoundation.org. You can go there and sign up for our taper program, our health assessment. We do health assessments to help people that are coming off these meds because your central nervous system is going to be really sensitive. Mine still is, so we don't really advocate the use of a lot of supplements. There are a few things that have helped me that I do, fish oils, flaxseed oils, magnesium, things like that. And I'll go into that in a little more detail later, but you can go to the booking link and you can sign up there for either the health assessment or the taper program. If you can't afford it, there's a place to send me information about your financial situation. We take a tax return, and if you qualify, it's a sliding scale fee. So we don't turn anybody away who can't afford to do this because we think it's really important that people get help coming off these medications. It's very difficult to do, and honestly, if I hadn't have found the pharmacist that helped me taper, who is the one who does our consults here, I would have never made it coming off these drugs because I, first of all, didn't understand the mechanism of how they worked and how much disruption they'd cause with my entire system. It seems like they just disrupt your immune system, your hormone system. After I went on them, I had one infection after the other, and I had no idea that it was the drug causing it. So when all that stuff starts to come back online, you're just super sensitive because you've been down-regulating all of those neurotransmitters for however long you've been on the medication. So we want to make sure that everyone can have access to this. And I'm going to show you in a little more detail how the program works today and the different parts of it so you can understand and have a better idea what you're going through, because I would never have known what to expect or what to anticipate or how bad it was going to be. No one really told me. The doctors didn't really have much information, and by the time I was well into a dependency on the medication, I had already been really sick for a long time and was scrambling going to one doctor after the other, and not a one of them ever mentioned that it might be the medication causing my problems. Granted, it would have probably been hell trying to come off of them while I was as sick as I was, because I contracted a double parasite infection while I was down in Costa Rica, and none of my friends got sick at all. They were all fine. We all ate the same food, lived in the same condo, and no one else came back sick. And I was deathly ill. And although I had doctors that mentioned, well, it's not the best medication to take long term, none of them ever said why, or maybe it is a problem. I can find out why, but I don't really know. It's just sort of this gray area, and it was really a long journey for me. And so that's why I got into doing this, was because I wanted to help other people get off and get their lives back like me. I'm just really getting healthy again, and it feels good to be back into life and working and recording again. So that was another one of my announcements, is that there's also a link for our Patreon channel below. You can donate to the nonprofit. It is a tax-deductible donation, and you can become a member for as little as $1 a month and get access to our page. I'm going to have a lot of new YouTube videos up. I'm going to have CDs that we're giving away for the memberships, and you'll get credits on my new videos. There's going to be one main one that's coming out this spring. It's the title track from the CD called Return from the Abyss. I'm not sure if I'm only going to make that available to Patreon members yet or not. We're still editing and mixing the music, so we're going to kind of play that by ear. The place you can sign up for the taper program is at followyourblissfoundation.org. That's below as well. You can go to the booking page, and like I said, you can you can click on either place to book an appointment, and we'll get you set up and help you. That's the whole purpose of the membership base for the Patreon channel, is for people to help other people that have gone through this so that they can have access to the program if they can't afford it. And that includes not only help with your medication taper, but also help after you get off for a while, guidance on diet, like I said, and supplements, and the whole process. We get you through from beginning to end and after, because a lot of people think you're going to get off the medication and that's going to be the end of it, and it is for some people. Again, I said, like last time, I'm like, grrr, I don't want to talk to those people. I talk to the people that we can help. And so what you'll do is, if you sign up, then we'll take you through from beginning to end, and we're just kind of working with people on this. There's no hard, fast rules with this, because we know what a difficult situation. I couldn't work for 5 years. I had other things going on with hormones and adrenal issues, but I was just too sick. I had all my friends helping me, and this particular pharmacist helped me with medications. I would have gone into cold turkey withdrawal because I was so out of it. I couldn't walk to the mailbox. I couldn't, I just didn't understand what was going on. And so it would have been really hard for me to scrape together the money to afford the doctor and to afford the whole program and the medications and all that. So we're going to try to work with you on this, and that's what we're raising funds for. So please, if you can, donate and sign up for our Patreon channel. It'll be a lot of fun. We're getting off the ground here this spring, and we're going to have a lot of music and information, and you can go to the blog at our website as well, and you can read all the posts that I've done there about my journey with it. And there's other people online too that are posting, and I'm going to hopefully have some other information about them. So anyway, I'm going to go into the program. There are 4 parts to the program. The first one is we get you stabilized, and what that means is that a lot of people come to us and they've tried to come off these drugs cold turkey. They just are really out of it because they've been trying to adjust the dose. I had one woman who was in New York that kept trying to cut it too fast, and she went into a tailspin, and then she'd only keep it that way for a day or two, and it takes longer to stabilize than that. It can take a week, 2 weeks to stabilize on these drugs, and then you can't ever really tell if you're stable because you're still having tolerance withdrawal, you're still having other things. But our rule is that we like to taper very slowly, and we try to keep you as functional as possible while you're stabilizing at each dose. There have been some videos online, and I'm not a real expert on the water titrations. The only things that I do know about them is they're not real stable. If you mix them with milk or water, they can contract bacteria and stuff. The oils we use are almond oil and olive oil, and they stay stable at room temperature, so you don't have to refrigerate them. And a lot of people don't understand that you need to cut a dose very slowly. We recommend 2.5 to 10%, slowing down toward the end of your taper, because it becomes a larger percentage of the overall dose the closer to the end of the taper you get. And I didn't quite understand that when I was coming off because I was so out of it, but what happened is I started at like 10% because I was on such a high dose excuse me, of benzos, and I was able to taper pretty quickly once a week at 10%, but then I started going into a tailspin when it got to a certain point. And then I had to start tapering at like I think 5%, and then I dropped to 2.5, and then I dropped down to like just minuscule amounts at the end because I was so sick. But if I can explain it, if you're, say, coming off 100 milligrams of diazepam, 10% is going to be a lot less of 100 than, say, when you get down to 50, 10% is going to be a lot more. So that's why you have to reduce the taper by, like in my case, like I said, 5%, 2.5%, because then it becomes a really larger percentage of the overall dose. So if you have any questions, you can leave comments below, and I'll be glad to get back to you. You can email me at the website if you have questions about this. But the whole goal is to just get you, if you're on a short-acting benzodiazepine, we try to transfer you over to clonazepam or diazepam so that they've got longer half-lives. If you understand anything about this, the Xanax, the lorazepam are really fast-acting with short half-lives. That's what I was on, the lorazepam. And if you try to taper off those, they can be pretty rough because you get that rebound anxiety and rebound withdrawal symptoms, and it's really hard, really hard. I tried a couple times coming off that. So I didn't understand until I had read up on Heather Ashton's information and found out about the slow taper. Now, the other benefit to the liquids is because cutting can be really difficult when you get down to the smaller doses. And I was trying to do that at one point, and they were crumbling all over the place. And it's really hard when you get down to needing to be at a very, very small dose to even cut a 2 milligram diazepam, capsule, or tablet. So what we try to do is, when we stabilize you, we get you leveled off and hopefully on a longer acting benzodiazepine. And then once you stabilize, we start the taper process. And again, like I said, that can be anywhere from 2.5 to 10% depending on the dose, how long you've been on it, how, other health issues you've got. We do a complete intake so we know exactly what you're dealing with, and you can ask a lot of questions during that intake when we get you set up. So then once you start tapering, you're going to have some problems and bumps and grinds along the way. We're working with a compounding pharmacy that you can get it filled through and get the liquids. I can show you a little bit about how the liquids work. They come in a bottle, something like this. The pharmacy might have a little difference. And then they have a syringe. And this is olive oil, and it has, this is actually phenibut. I'm still tapering off one more and doing pretty well with it. It's not as bad as, nothing is as bad as the benzos. Nothing is as bad as that. So what I do is, just for instance, if like I used the example of 100 milligrams, say you're doing, one syringe is 10 milligrams, let's just say that, okay, and you need to come down, you're coming down by 10%. This is a 10 mil syringe, and each 0.1 equals a tenth of that, so in other words, 1 milligram. So if you're cutting by 10%, which at 10 milligrams, if you're starting from there, you could go 10% at first, but you'd probably want to slow down later. You would taper each week or 2 weeks or a month. It just depends on the pace you want to go at. And the slower the better. For some people, they don't want to be that patient with it. I kind of barreled through mine at the first part of it and then slowed down toward the end because it was just getting too rough. But each week or whenever you do the taper, you're going to taper by that one. I'm going to see if I can put it up closer to the camera here so you can see it. It's 10. So that would be full 10 milligrams, and each 1.1 would be, oops, I'm going the wrong direction. 0.1 or a tenth of a milligram, 10 milligrams, so 1 milligram. My math is terrible. That's why we have a pharmacist that does all this, because I understand it only because they give me the instructions, say, you taper by this much, and I'm like, okay. I guess I was pretty out of it. So anyway, pretty easy to use. It's liquid. You can leave it at room temperature. You don't have to worry about refrigerating it. It's very, very simple to do. And what I did with my taper is I was on a 3 dosing schedule to keep your blood levels even. And I would write it on my calendar. And you could do this on your phone, however you want to do it, but I'm kind of old school, so I have it on my planner. And I would write those doses. Say I needed to take 5 milligrams in the morning, 5 milligrams in the afternoon, and 5 milligrams at night. I would write that down, and then after I took the dose, I'd circle it, because your brain goes cuckoo coming off this stuff, and it's like a double check method. So I knew that I hadn't taken the dose yet if it wasn't circled. If it was circled, then I didn't have to think, oh, did I take the dose? Did I forget? Because you go through all that, and you're like, ugh. It's just easier. It was one of those things that I learned to do after a while because I was just getting too confused because I was tapering off a couple things. I came off Benzos and Lunesta, and I did both methods the same way, and I thought it was really helpful. So Then we get you through the process of tapering, which can take months, years. In my case, it was years. It was a really, really long journey. And I don't envy anybody that's going through it. I'm glad it's behind me. I have all this time to look forward to. Still healing, still have some stuff. Today I'm pretty sore and, a lot of tight muscles and, just I feel good. My brain's better. I can think clearer. I'm out doing stuff that I wasn't able to do before. But it's still it's a process, because you have days that you're just like, God, is this going to be over soon? So that process is long. But one of the things that come out of it for me is I was stronger. I felt liberated after you get through it. It's just like you don't have this ball and chain you're hauling around anymore. So then the very last stage, the fourth stage, would be the third stage is really that last dose. You kind of go through what we call kind of acute withdrawal at the jump off point. I had a pretty rough time of it. Some people have a little bit harder time, some people not so much, but I had a pretty hard time for about 4 to 6 weeks till the drug completely clears your system after you take the last dose, because it just takes that long to really get out of your whole body, so your body can learn to be without the drug. And then that is the last stage, is adjusting to life without taking medications. And that can be challenging all by itself, because you do think you're going to be done with it when you take that last dose. And then for me, I think I was really like, wow, really, this is going to be another year or 2 or 3 in some people's case, because they were just, I would hear a lot of things. And that's not true of everybody. You got to remember that your journey with this is your journey. It's individualized. It's not something that everyone goes through exactly the same. There are a lot of similarities with symptoms, and commonalities, and thank God that there was the internet, because if it hadn't have been for the pharmacists that helped me and the people online, there is no way in hell I would have ever figured out what I was going through or why. I didn't know why I was so sick, and I didn't understand it. And no one ever explained this to me other than the posts online in the support groups and the videos and the websites that I found by just searching. So we help you get through that process. We have counseling services and we have support services that will continue to help you with, so that you can get clear of this. And this is one of the things in my other video that I made about the spiritual things that I use, the meditation, the yoga, the tapping. A lot of the things that I've done are tools that can help you get through your life better without drugs. And it is so nice to not have to be taking anything anymore. It's like, it's great to be able to manage my stress and my anxiety. And some days are tough. I had a bit of a rough day yesterday, but I always tell myself, these days are nothing compared to the worst days that I had when I was in acute withdrawal. It's like, they'll mean nothing. So you can just remind yourself that today is not as good as some of the days I've been having, but that's definitely not as bad as anything I've already been through. And that's the one thing you have to tell yourself and remember, because it gets better. Every day it gets better. And the more you use the tools in your life as a day-to-day routine. If I don't meditate, or I don't do yoga, or do my other practices, it's like I feel like I'm missing something, like I didn't brush my teeth. Because you just kind of learn a rhythm, and you'll be surprised that when you take time out to meditate or do things for yourself, that you actually have more energy and get more done. I can't believe the amount that I'm accomplishing right now. There's no way I thought I would be back to recording already and playing for the amount of hours that I'm putting in again. I didn't see that happening again for me even 4 or 5 months ago when I came off the Lunesta. I was like, my head was just completely messed up. And my creative flow is so much better. I can't believe the things I'm creating and recording and writing. It's just been such a blessing to finally get through all this. And that's the really joy part of it. So we can help you through that whole program. That's what our taper program is for. You're going to probably, I don't know about this because there are some support groups on Facebook that used our pharmacist, and he uses progesterone as a way to wean people off the benzos. And a lot of people online are very anti-progesterone. I use it, and it was a miracle for me. I wouldn't have slept half the time if it hadn't have been for high doses of progesterone, and I was a lucky one who could take it that didn't have any side effects from it. Some people do, and that's just what happens. Some women in particular that are midlife that go through this, who haven't used progesterone or estrogen and they are in menopause, their receptor sites are down-regulated. So when you use progesterone, estrogen and progesterone work hand in hand. And that progesterone will stimulate and hit those estrogen receptors. And a lot of people think it's actually the progesterone that's causing problems, but it's your sensitive nervous system that's triggering a lot of the response that you get from the progesterone. I had been on progesterone before I ever started tapering off the benzos, so I had already, and I never had any reaction even then when I first went on it. I felt better, and it calms me down, it keeps me even, and it helps me sleep. So whatever rumors you've heard about those things, it's an individual thing. You have to decide for yourself what's right. I've had people that I've worked with that just absolutely no way, I'm not going to take hormones. And I'm like, okay, that's your choice. But I kind of felt like there were some people that filed complaints that, based on their own experience, there were people in the pharmaceutical industry that were on a witch hunt because they've been kind of against compounding pharmacies for a while now since the bioidentical hormones came out. And it was just another reason to give them an excuse to come in and wreak havoc on something that was helping a lot of people. And because this happened, a lot of people lost access to their support for their taper programs. Everybody was flipping out when the pharmacy got closed down because they couldn't get their benzos, I couldn't get my hormones. And it was really unfortunate that a few people had to make a lot of noise because they felt that it was something that it wasn't. And they're still on benzodiazepines, and I think they're in a bit of denial about the drug causing as much problem as it actually does. And I know I was, so I can't really fault them for what they think. It just is what it is. But I wanted to put in a plug for Roy because he's one of the best guys on the face of the planet. You will never find anybody that is more knowledgeable about this stuff, and I wouldn't be alive if it weren't for him. So I wanted to speak out about that just because it was really hard, the transition for all of us who were involved with the program, to have to shift gears and recreate something that was working really well for a lot of people. So on that note, I want to thank everybody for watching. You can leave comments. Again, I said you can email me at our website. It's followyourblissfoundation.org again. And if you have any questions or suggestions of topics that you want to talk about or things you want to know, feel free to let me know because I'll do a special YouTube video on any subject you want to know. And I will keep you posted on our release date for the video. Again, you can donate through the Patreon channel below, and you'll get lots of good information being a member and help support a really good cause. So happy spring again, everybody, and I'll see you next time. Thanks. Bye.